Hard to believe that the June 28th primary is almost here and early voting starting soon as well. And you've got choices across the ballots, not just on the Democrat side. If you pull a Democrat ballot, you can't pull a Republican ballot. If you pull a Republican ballot, you can't pull a Democrat ballot. That's just Illinois' primary process. So you got to contend with that. But you've got choices on either ticket. Now, just for an example, on the Democrat side, there's a choice for who you want to be the Democratic gubernatorial nominee, either incumbent Governor J.B. Pritzker, who's got $80+ million in his campaign fund, or Chicago area nurse and U.S. Army veteran Beverly Miles, who only has $260 in her campaign fund. But on the Republican side, you've got 6 candidates vying for the GOP nomination. And those are Aurora Mayor Richard Irvin, State Senator Darren Bailey, businessman Gary Rabine, entrepreneur Jesse Sullivan, attorney Max Solomon, and former State Senator Paul Schimpf. And that's who joins us right now on WMAY at 7:39. I'm Greg Bishop with Springfield's Morning News. And Paul, thanks for taking time with us this morning. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Greg. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So we've been talking with all the various candidates, and we've got, of course, new poll numbers. Some came out last week showing Irvin and Bailey up against each other. A new poll last night from WGN-TV, The Hill, and Emerson College, also showing Bailey and Irvin. It depends on, if they're downstate voters or suburban voters. You're on that list, but less than 2% of the polling data. What are your thoughts about polls at this point in a crowded primary?
Well, at this point, you have any of the polling that you see really shows that the big winner right now is the undecideds. People have still not made their mind up. A lot of people are not thinking about the race yet. And really, with a crowded primary, 25% is going to win. So I'm not concerned about the polling right now. The numbers that we have seen, the stuff that we put a lot of stock in, shows that our support is growing. We, in fact, earlier this week, we were endorsed by the Chicago firefighters, which is a huge endorsement. So our numbers are going up. If the election were held tomorrow, would we win? Probably not. But it's not going to be held tomorrow. We still have 6 weeks to go, and we're showing some positive movement, but a lot of people have not made their decision yet. So this is still very much anybody's race.
I want to talk about a statement you put out earlier this week about some of the infighting that's going on. So we'll touch on that in a moment, but back to this WGN TV poll that was done with The Hill and Emerson College. It also asked about some of the major issues here, and the economy, stupid, right? I mean, James Carville told us that years ago. It seems to pan out that is indeed the chief issue among voters. Things like COVID, the war in Ukraine are very low on the list. What do you make of the chief concerns you're hearing from potential constituents here?
Well, I hear a lot about the economy. Inflation just really scares people to death. I mean, and people are smart enough to realize that, when President Biden tries to blame inflation on Vladimir Putin, that's not accurate. Inflation was skyrocketing long before Putin invaded the Ukraine. That is something that people are very concerned about. They're going to hold the Democrats responsible, Joe Biden, but also J.B. Pritzker. We need to remember that there is practically no political daylight at all between Biden and Pritzker. They are in almost 100% alignment on everything. So the voters are dissatisfied. J.B. Pritzker is in a lot of trouble. The question really is going to be, can the Republican Party unify behind a candidate that can unite the people of Illinois and offer solutions? If the Republican Party is unified this fall, J.B. Pritzker is looking at a defeat.
I want to talk about that unification here in a bit, but back to some of these issues. Of course, the economy gathered like 50+% of the most recent poll when it comes to the top issues. Crime was a distant second, but still second on that list. How do we address some of the issues that we're seeing in Chicago and across the state to alleviate some of the concerns that constituents have concerning crime?
Well, all these issues are interrelated in terms of if we want to get Illinois' economy going again, if we want to be leading our neighboring states rather than lagging behind, we have to address the crime and public safety issue in Chicago. Chicago, like it or not, Chicago is the largest economic engine in the state of Illinois. And if we do not have a vibrant, safe, and prosperous Chicago, we are not going to have our economy humming along like it should. We can't solve any of our fiscal issues long term. So that's why we need a governor who is going to take a stand and a governor who is going to make fighting crime in Chicago a priority, because that affects our economic health as a whole. And I'm the only candidate really with the background as a prosecutor where I have done a lot of prosecution work. I have the credibility to bring people together and hold them accountable. And one of the other things that I will do differently than J.B. Pritzker is, if when I am governor, you do not see violence decline significantly, I will not be running for re-election. To me, I'm on a different place on the political spectrum than J.B. Pritzker is. I disagree with a lot of his decisions, practically all of them. But really what angers me the most is that he has the audacity to run for re-election when violence has spiraled out of control in our state and people just simply no longer feel safe. That should have been disqualifying. And if I was him, I wouldn't have the audacity to want to run for re-election after things had deteriorated so badly on my watch.
7:45 now with Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop. We're talking with GOP candidates for governor, one of 6 that's vying for the Republican nominations. Former State Senator Paul Schimpf, he joins us here on WMAY. Earlier this week, we saw Aurora Mayor Richard Irvin hold a news conference about the issue of abortion, and we'll get your take on that issue altogether here in a moment. But it turned into Chicago area media in a pretty combative news conference with the Aurora mayor, and they asked about politics, they asked about Trump, they asked about abortion. The Irvin news conference was about the LaSalle Veterans Home, not about abortion. Ultimately, it kind of highlighted he attacked Bailey, he attacked Sullivan, Sullivan attacking back, Bailey calling Irvin a coward. Is this just what we get typically with a crowded primary, and what do you think needs to happen with this political infighting?
Well, some of this you're always going to have. It's just the nature of the game. But we do at this point need to recognize that the only way we win in Illinois as a Republican Party is if we are united. And that's just not me, making a pie-in-the-sky statement. That's an analysis of history. You look at what happened in 2010. The 2010 political environment was very similar to what we're seeing today. It was going to be a red tsunami nationally. That was Barack Obama's first midterm, and in fact, the Republicans picked up, I believe it was 63 House seats. It was just a phenomenal environment for Republicans. But yet, the Illinois Republican Party managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory in 2010, and Bill Brady lost the 2010 governor election to Pat Quinn, largely because moderate suburban voters sat it out on the Republican side. So we didn't have a unified party in 2010. We were unified in 2014 behind Bruce Rauner's first gubernatorial campaign. We won by 5 points. But then in 2016, in the U.S. Senate election, you had Mark Kirk, a sitting U.S. senator who had gone out of his way to antagonize our conservative base. They stayed home. He lost by 30 points. And then in 2018, the Republican Party was badly fractured during Rauner's reelection campaign, and he was blown out of the water as well. The point is, you cannot win in Illinois unless you have a unified Republican Party behind you. That means both the suburban moderates and the conservative base working together. And if you don't have that, you cannot win. And I fear that some of my fellow competitors have already made themselves unelectable in the general election just because they have burned bridges.
We're talking with former State Senator Paul Schimpf. He's one of 6 vying for the GOP nomination to take on incumbent Governor J.B. Pritzker in November. Paul, do you have another segment? You can stay with us until the top of the hour?
Yes, I can. Happy
Fantastic. All right. Well, good deal. Because I want to talk a little bit more about what you plan on doing to bring about that unity of the Republican Party, but also to cover some of the other issues: abortion, Second Amendment, how you plan on getting Illinois' economy on track. So stay tuned. We'll cover that and more here with Springfield's Morning News as we talk with former State Senator Paul Schimpf on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News. All right, back with State Senator Paul Schimpf, former state senator. He is vying for the Republican nomination for governor, one of 6 candidates, talking about how the party needs to be unified, and that's not necessarily the case right now as we've got this crowded field with some of the contenders flinging a lot of mud back and forth. Paul, again, thanks for taking time. We've got you until the top of the hour here for a hard break, so let's get through some of these major issues. Abortion, of course, the national conversation getting pretty heated with the leaked U.S. Supreme Court's opinion that could overturn Roe v. Wade and put it back into the hands of states. In the state of Illinois, you've already got lawmakers and even the governor looking at possibly spending more tax dollars to help people from out of state come into Illinois for an abortion. Where do you stand on abortion? And in a state like Illinois, how does a Republican make any such decisions when it comes to this issue?
Well, I'm pro-life. I'm unapologetically pro-life. And this is an issue that J.B. Pritzker wants to talk about because he knows he's in trouble. He cannot run on his record, so he wants to fire up his base on this. But the reality is the people of Illinois are a lot more closer to the mainstream than J.B. Pritzker is on this issue. For instance, the people of Illinois are not comfortable with having their tax dollars spent on non-Illinois residents coming to Illinois and having abortions here. The people of Illinois would be, shocked and horrified to find out that right now their tax dollars can be spent for aborting a preborn child all the way up until live birth for any reason, no matter how heinous. And that's what J.B. Pritzker stands for. So J.B. Pritzker is an extremist on the abortion issue. And if abortion becomes a huge issue in the governor's election, that's going to help the Republicans just because J.B. Pritzker is so extreme and out of touch.
Would you work to repeal the law that repealed parental notification in the state of Illinois?
Well, I was opposed to getting rid of parental notification. It's important to realize what a governor can and cannot do on the abortion issue. Unlike the president, the Illinois governor does not appoint any judges. The governor does not file legislation. The governor does not make judicial decisions. What I will do and what I promise to do as governor is I will sign any legislation that moves Illinois closer to the mainstream, away from what we have right now, which are the most radical abortion laws in the nation. As I said, right now in Illinois, a preborn child can be aborted up until the moment of live birth for any reason, no matter how heinous, like gender selection, and it's paid for with taxpayer dollars. That is extreme. That's frankly embarrassing. And when I'm governor, I will sign any legislation that moves us closer to the mainstream.
2 other issues, 2 minutes, so 1 minute each. Let's talk about the economy. The state of Illinois has high taxes. You've got fewer manufacturing jobs. They seem to be going to other states. How do we reverse that trend and also the population decline we see?
Well, my Lieutenant Governor running mate, Carolyn Schofield, and I have put forth a policy proposal called A New Start for Illinois. Two of the 6 pillars in that proposal deal directly with getting our economy going again and getting more business activity in Illinois. One is we need to end the predatory practice of the government charging tax on tax. That is obscene, the fact that the Illinois government and units of government will charge you tax on tax you are already paying. We are proposing a constitutional amendment that would do away with that. We are also proposing changes to the Illinois Administrative Procedures Act that would say that if you have administrative rules that are either passed by the agencies on an emergency basis or administrative rules that increase fees or penalties, those do not become effective unless there are 7 yes votes from JCAR, the Joint Committee for Administrative Rules. That would make it much more difficult for governors to run the state through executive action, and it would also start to roll back some of the bureaucratic red tape that is choking the life out of our small businesses.
Former State Senator Paul Schimpf, I greatly appreciate you taking the time with us. We'll likely talk again before June 28th, and if people need more information about your candidacy, where can they find it?
Best place is at our campaign website, which is Schimpf, 4, and then Illinois.com. Schimpf, 4, Illinois.com. And, looking forward to being on again. There's a lot of, it's coming right up, but there's still a lot of time, and most people have not made their minds up yet, so I look forward to talking with you again in the near future.
Studio. Take the easy way out. WMAY Springfield, WMAY FM Taylorville, 92.